In-Depth Douglas is a new student-produced podcast about civic life in Douglasville, Douglas County, Georgia. Civic life includes government, education, arts and culture, religion, community service, all things that comprise the public life we share together. Through authentic, thoughtful conversations, we seek to take the public deeper into the lives of our civic leaders and the organizations they lead, so that all of us who call Douglasville and Douglas County home can engage more productively and effectively in the civic life of the community. Here we are in the Douglas inaugural podcast, and we have a special guest today. Couldn't ask for a better guest on our inaugural podcast, and we're here with Mr. Trent North, Superintendent of Douglas County School System since 2017. He came to us from Carrollton, where he worked for 25 years as a school and district administrator. And while he was serving in the school system, he also served on the Carrollton City Council, and so has extensive small-town political experience as well. So, as advertised, the main topic for today is kind of the COVID story. This, taking us inside to what was that really like? And we all know sort of the basics. We know the decisions, but can't imagine how hard that was. And so, but before we get into that, I'd just like to give you a chance to tell us what led you to come here 4 years ago.
4 years ago, I was serving as principal of Carrollton Middle School, and my brother wasn't doing well, and I knew that God had plans for me. Wasn't sure what they were. My belief is that if I do it, it's going to be difficult. If God does it, I don't have to do it because He's going to guide my steps, guide my thoughts. And so I prayed about it. There were 5 superintendencies that were open at the time. After much prayer and guidance, it is with peace that I know I am where God wants me to be. When I see the work that we've already accomplished in just 4 years, I know that it's nothing that I could have done. And so I am here through prayer.
And it last 4 years, I'm sure, has affirmed that calling.
Absolutely.
And the fruit of your labors. And we recognize that as well. And glad that you were here. So thank you. All right, so since COVID is on everyone's mind still, especially with the hope and promise of returning back to normal, and the extent to which that's even possible, that's what I want to focus on first, and then we'll circle back at the end to talk about your vision for the school system, kind of generally your hopes and dreams for our school system. So what was it like for you and your leadership team when COVID hit in March 2020? Take us in viscerally to the thoughts, the emotions, the hardships, the difficulties, and shutting schools down, and what went into that.
I remember when I got a heads up from the governor's office, letting us know that they were going to close and require everyone to stay at home. And they asked, as a school system, are you all planning to what are we looking to do in Douglas County? And I had met with my entire team, and so we anticipated that we would go home and provide online instruction up until spring break. So when we met, we were preparing units and lesson plans and copying assignments with the anticipation of returning.
Right, so you thought it was going to be a short-term quarantine period.
Because all of the media was it's not really here. We just want to get ahead of it. The media was, because America...
And if we do, it won't take long to
because America was still debating.
Right.
And so America was debating, well, is it real or is it not real, or how long will it be here? Well, if we go home for X amount of... If we isolate ourselves for 10 days and it all go away. Mm-hmm. And so listening to the media and reading what was in the headlines, we really felt and believed that after spring break, we would return. And, of course, that did not occur.
And when did you realize that wasn't going to be the case?
4 days into it. What I realized as a superintendent, and that we had to figure out how to monitor the data on a local level, state level, and a national level. And so 2 weeks into it, I began to meet with Dr. Janet Memark, the executive director from the health department. And so I would meet with my team weekly. I would meet with all of the superintendents in the Metro RESA every Wednesday. I would meet with Dr. Memark, the superintendent of Cobb County, the superintendent of Marietta County, Marietta City School System. Every Thursday at 4 o'clock, we would hold a meeting.
It was a coordinated regional.
It was a coordinated state effort.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
So were there any difficult decisions where there was some dissent, even within the district or with those other bodies?
Yeah.
So tell us about one sort of conflict that was particularly hard and how that got resolved.
But what I would say the conflict is there was still a debate amongst even the leadership was whether or not was COVID real or not.
Oh.
Should we close school or not? Should we trace or not? Who should be responsible for tracing? Should the schools be responsible for tracing, or should the Department of Public Health be responsible for tracing? What happens if
just
someone...
dividing responsibilities and figuring out who can do what best?
Yes. Or and everybody, and so you had the health department, they were struggling in a good way trying to test those who were concerned as to whether or not they were having, to find out whether they were positive or negative. So the health department, they're trying to do their part, and then they're trying to figure out, now that we know that someone's positive, who's going to be responsible for the tracing? If I can't keep up with the test, if I can't get the test in, and so it was.
That sounds incredibly complicated.
And so it was complicated, and everybody was reading their articles, and everybody all of a sudden they were becoming an expert, and so the challenging part.
Instant experts.
Instant experts. Oh, and so the challenging part for me was every Thursday at 3 o'clock. I think we met at 3 or 4 o'clock. I would receive the number of people who tested positive in Douglas County. I would receive the number of people who are in the IC beds at Wellstar. I would receive how many beds they have available. So the data I had, and I had my little Excel spreadsheet, and I would track it and monitor it every day.
Wow.
In addition to that, I had my staff tracking what was occurring at school. And so if a student tested positive, we would track where were you, who were you with, and so we could tell, based upon our tracing, where the virus, where the person became positive from.
Imagine some people had to take on jobs and responsibilities they never had to do before because school system's not used to doing that. That is fascinating. So on the other end of this, once we got through to the summer, during the summer, in contrast with nearby districts like Paulding, which didn't even have a strong mask requirement and was very lax and went to school 5 times a day. But then on the other extreme, 5 times a week, on the other extreme, Atlanta, which didn't even go back in person at all, Douglas County really struck a balance where, from a parent perspective, and I have 4 children in the school system, where you did everything you could to maximize the amount of in-person instruction, but also being very, very strict and rigorous in your protocols. So take us into that decision. You didn't go the Paulding way, you didn't go the Atlanta way. So, how did that come about?
So what happens is all of that was good conversations between my board, my principals, teachers, and the community. Trying to figure out, we always want science to dictate what we do. And there's a balance between making sure you follow science and also allow people some flexibility of choice.
Sure, because science isn't always definitive. In fact, often it's not.
Especially, I don't want to say whether it's definitive or not. What I would say is we don't know until after how definitive it is. And so what I mean by that is,
right.
yeah, so we don't know.
It makes total sense.
Yeah, and so But here's what I do know. I feel very comfortable that the model we had was probably a very strong and good model. I think it was better than the city of Atlanta because we were able to provide instruction face to face. And that's no judgment on the city of Atlanta because I know the superintendent, the prior, and so I think everyone's trying to work within their community. And that's an important
Sure, and their
piece.
community values too, putting different pressures on
That's
them,
correct.
pulling in different directions.
That's correct.
Sure, because Paulding and Atlanta, like politically and culturally, are very, very different too, and we're kind of in the middle, and
That's
so
right.
that kind of fits, right?
But our model was better than Paulding and better than Carroll because they really didn't do anything. And so for Christmas, we were able to remain in school up and follow our entire calendar. But most people don't know that the reason they started Christmas break early, it was because they couldn't manage the COVID. So whether you're talking about a Carroll County and what we know is, what we'll say is, we just want to give our teachers a break. And it really wasn't about giving teachers a break. It was about, we can't manage the COVID. We have too many teachers out sick. We have too many kids out and with the tracing. And so some schools, like we were blessed in Douglas. We didn't have to close a single school, not one time. And so you have schools who didn't open, but you also have schools who opened who didn't do anything. And if you look at the data, they ended up stopping earlier or closing or having to close a school here or close a school there. And so I feel like we had the best model, a little bit inconvenience, but it was the best model and it was predictable because what we started with in the fall, we were able to complete up until the end of the school year without any interruption.
That's amazing.
And we can say that until the end of the school year, which was May, when everybody got a little bit relaxed, not a single cluster occurred in Douglas County.
You mean a cluster of where it spread?
Or it
among other
spread.
people?
Yes,
Wow.
and not one. And so that was important to us.
Those are fantastic numbers. I'll ask you a similar question. In deciding that you were going to go full-on in-person instruction as much as you could, what was the most difficult part of that decision? Where did you have some conflict or dissent, if any?
So for me, going face-to-face was a no-brainer. We're in education. That's what we do.
That's right.
I needed our teachers to be on board, and we have phenomenal teachers. I needed for them to be comfortable. I needed for my parents to have options.
Sure.
And so once I knew my parents were good, once I knew my teachers were good, we set aside 100 positions.
I remember that. Yes.
So that if there was a teacher who had an underlying health condition, or if there was a teacher who didn't feel comfortable, so that they could teach online or do something completely different until COVID was under control, or at least manageable. And so I felt like there was a partnership between the Douglas County Board of Education, myself, the leadership in Douglas County, and our teachers, and a partnership between our parents. We didn't get it perfect,
Sure.
but I felt good about it.
It's
I
definitely
still
hard.
feel good
It's
about
definitely hard to manage that many stakeholders and get
Yes.
anything perfect.
I know that's
That. Well, I think that the success of that sets our community up well for the fall. I know this information is out there and will be distributed, but if you could just briefly summarize what will return to normal and what won't compared to 2 years ago.
So, wow. I feel like last year we did a very good job of improving on our online platform. And so I'm excited about that. What I don't feel like we did a good job of last year was equipping our students and our teachers to be successful
On that
on those
platform.
platforms.
Right. It's
So
hard.
this year,
It's very hard.
and so we're training teachers on how to be more effective with platforms, and we're training students on how to be more effective with learning from home.
Yes, as a teacher myself last year, I can speak to that of trying to. You can have this great technology,
That's right.
right? And it's awesome, some of the technology we have, but to try to make that relationship healthy and productive through that medium is a whole other story.
And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited that we are committed this year to not having teachers. The teachers are the heroes in this because just for yourself, you had to provide instructions to students in your classroom And teachers who are keen, they're very good at noticing when someone needs attention or you need to remind someone to focus, and trying to do it in both settings were difficult. So we are committed to not doing that this year. We will not have a single teacher. The goal is to have to do double duty.
Okay, but you'll still have online
absolutely,
options.
absolutely.
Okay. Tell us one challenge in going back to normal that you anticipate, and what you would like parents primarily to do to help, or others in the community.
The most stressful part about COVID isn't the kids returning to school. The most stressful part with COVID isn't the teachers providing instruction. There are superintendents who retired because of the mask debate.
Mm-hmm.
And so the stressful part of COVID, and it isn't for me, the board and I, we listen to our teachers, we look at the data, we try to take into consideration our community, but we try to do what we think is best, because you have a handsome son here. And it's important for us to make sure that he receives the quality of instruction that you want him to receive. Wherever he chooses to go to school, our job is to assist him with getting there. But if we don't get him home till he's safe, I don't care how smart he is, I don't care how handsome he is, then we've both lost. And so for us, keeping the kids safe is our top priority.
Sure, because nothing else can really happen if that's not in place.
And agreeing on that and what that looks and
Agreeing
feels.
on what safe means.
Yes.
Because not everyone's going to agree. Everyone has different risk tolerances, right?
Yeah,
So.
yeah. And so it took me a little while to come to grips with your job, the board's job, as a team, is to make sure that kids are safe first and that they receive the quality of instruction. And so that's been the...
So how can the community help with that safety piece, or like parents help with the safety piece? Because obviously parents have a role.
No question. So number one, the school system is sometimes being penalized because of the community. Give you an example. Whether we agree or disagree with the vaccine, we have the poorest number of people being vaccinated in the metro area.
Oh gosh, yes, it's embarrassing.
And so there's a correlation between that and the rapid increase in the number of people testing positive.
Especially with the Delta variant, yes, and there's surges at the hospital.
And there are surges at the hospital.
Right.
And 2 days ago, our positivity rate was at 8.4. You can't say, I don't want the vaccine. You can't say COVID isn't real. And you can't say, I want my kids to go to school, and I'm not going to acknowledge that there is a COVID. But at the same time, I'm not doing any of that, and the numbers are low, but you can't make my child wear a mask.
And you can become complacent. If they're low, then why are my kids wearing a mask?
Yes.
Because it's fine.
Yes.
But you never know when it will suddenly not be fine. That is very insightful. And I appreciate you bringing us deep into the COVID story and COVID decisions. So in closing, last topic, and what you said that caught my attention, that inspires me, is taking the long view, which I see how you're able to do. Early on in your tenure, the system adopted the slogan, the standard of excellence, which some might say, there's a lot of hubris in that. The standard. How about a standard? That article means a lot. And so why was that the slogan, and describe more concretely what you envision that to look like?
So when I came to Douglas County, my goal wasn't the standard of excellence. My goal was to come, better understand the community, better understand what we do in the school system. And what I realized was, while Douglas County is a great community and we had a great school system, we were content with being average. Mm-hmm. I didn't think we were necessarily challenging our students. Mm-hmm. I didn't think we were doing a good job of analyzing how we were monitoring and making adjustments.
Well, you told me
for us
about that data partnership you had with
Yes.
Harvard to get better at that, right?
Yes, and I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to bring you back to share with the work we're doing.
Okay, yeah. me
And
too.
so what I realized was we were a diamond in the rough, and so we needed to begin having conversation about what is excellence. And so excellence is doing things right the first time, and whatever we do is going to last well beyond the shelf life. Instead of, we were more concerned about spending money than spending money correctly.
That's an important distinction.
And so, we want to be good stewards of taxpayer. God requires us to do that. Good steward doesn't mean taking the cheapest road.
Right.
And so, in Douglas County, from my perspective, being a good steward meant not buying quality. Being a good steward meant cutting corners.
Well, then it's not good investments if you're
Correct.
taking the cheapest route.
Yes. But we've been changing minds and changing attitudes about what is
Right.
good.
And to clarify, the building we're talking about is the new building, if you don't know, on 78 in the old Greystone building. So it sounds like a key to the standard of excellence is stewardship of resources.
Yes.
That's important to you. And to get at the vision a little bit more, just give us a couple concrete ways you say, like, there's sort of like, this is aspirational and then this is actual, right? And you can be in between, right? So what's something concrete, excuse me, where you could say, yes, if this happens, if we're here, then now it's less aspirational and more actual. What would be a sign of that?
So, one of the things I want aspirational for parents to be able to do is when mom and dad drops off their kindergartner and they're sitting in the parent orientation, I want to be able to say, Mom and Dad, whatever you want for your child, we can give you great guidance in kindergarten that we know can help you get your child to wherever you want him or her to be from graduation. You refer to it as an early warning system. We call it a portrait of a Douglas County school system graduate. We're not there yet, but we owe it to our parents in kindergarten to be honest with them, in first grade and second grade, and to have quantitative data that communicates that, and not qualitative. And so that's one piece of it.
Stewardship of resources, better use of data, using that data to more confidently communicate to parents that this is where we're going to take your child, lead your child, a data-rich environment where parents can use such information. So, my question is, what would you have parents or other stakeholders do to help you, approach the standard of excellence in that vision?
The most important thing I would ask for parents to do is they've got to become partners with the Douglas County school system.
And what does that look like?
And so what a partner looks like is, if we don't get it right, tell us. If we do, tell us. It can't be one-sided. You can't only say the good things, and you can't only say the bad thing. A true partnership is you are an ambassador. But what I learned from other school systems who are equal to us when it comes to data, but the perception-wise is they're better than us, is my mother used to have a saying, and she would tell us as a family, and my dad, and they would say, now, Trent, you can talk about your sister, and you can be honest with her, but that stays within our home. Outside of here, we say nothing bad about one another. And so what we've got to get to in Douglas County is we are a family. And so when you're sitting beside the mom at Paulding County and you're, AAU soccer, and the mom talks about how good her perception is, because that's all it is, her school is, and if the parent doesn't say, well, my son or daughter attends Douglas County school system, and we have a phenomenal school system as well, then we've lost. And so then we can't become frustrated if we lose students And so we have some great things occurring in Douglas County. So we need for our parents to join us and become ambassadors. You know, as a resident of Douglas County, I know that the number one indicator for where people choose to live, work, and play is school. And now because you can work from home more so than ever, it's not even really work. So now they move their kids to what they consider to be the best schools, and then they work from home. And so if the perception is that that isn't a good school system, that's going to have a financial impact on all of us who own property taxes, who own homes in Douglas County. And so we've got to partner and become ambassadors. If something isn't going right at your school, and if it's your teacher, step one, you start with the teacher. Give them every opportunity to get it right. They want to get it right.
Right.
If they don't, then go to the principal.
Right.
And then you end up with me. And our goal is to make it right.
And respect people the way that you want them to be. You want to be
Yes.
respected. Well, I think the best choice you made 4 years ago, maybe the first choice you made, was to live here, so that you would be invested in the community, and that you yourself would be a stakeholder.
Love Douglas County.
And not just an employee. And you see that in your community involvement, that this is your home. It's not just your job.
Thank you.
And that's made all the difference, I think. It makes a huge difference. So thanks for being a guest
You're welcome.
on our podcast. This was a great interview. And I hope as many people can see it, can hear it as possible, so that when they do engage with the school system, they can do it in an informed way. And that's our goal.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of In Depth Douglas. If you like our content, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and help spread the word about this podcast with your friends and family in Douglas County.